President Trump went in on Biden at his rally, and he previewed his 2020 strategy. I have a lot to say about this. This is fascinating. Take a look.
And if Biden is elected, he will surrender your country to these mobsters 100%. Your 401ks, by the way, look at how we're doing in the stock market. Just set another record with NASDAQ. Your 401ks and money itself will be worthless. Your 401ks are doing very well, unless, I don't want to say, if you were stupid, I said, don't sell, don't sell. It went down, but we got it back up. And now NASDAQ, think of it, NASDAQ just set a record, and I think you're going to see a lot of records. And next year, if we don't do anything stupid on November 3rd, you are going to have the greatest economic year we've ever had. That'll be next year. If the Democrats gain power, then the rioters will be in charge, and no one will be safe, and no one will have control. Joe Biden is not the leader of his party. Joe Biden is a helpless puppet of the radical left.
I wish Joe Biden was a, quote, helpless puppet of the so-called radical left. I wish that was the case. He's certainly not that. So now he's previewing what he's going to do in 2020 here and what he's going to do the rest of the campaign season. He is going to go all in on bragging about the things that he thinks are good. So he's talking about 401ks and the NASDAQ and the stock market. Don, how much more evidence do you need that this is flimsy ground? I mean, you're tap dancing on ice here, bro. I mean, the market plummeted and crashed recently, and then the only reason it's bounced back is because we basically fully socialized the stock market and bailed out investors and bailed out corporations. And then even with all of this help, there's still a chance that the market implodes. So you're gonna go out there and brag about this. This is so extremely volatile. So he's gonna brag about that. And by the way, that's not a good indicator of how your average American is doing. Obviously. You guys all know that. He apparently doesn't know that. That when you talk about the stock market, I mean, you're talking about the stock market at a time when 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And 20%, there's about 20% real unemployment. And people are struggling, and they can't pay the bills, and over 20 million people just lost their health care, and you're out there talking about the NASDAQ. So he's going to brag about the stuff he thinks is good. That's the whole keep America great strategy. So it's no longer make America great again, meaning, hey, things are bad, we got to change it. Now Trump is saying, oh, I made it good, so now we got to keep America great, which sounds a hell of a lot like Hillary's response to Trump in 2016. America's already great. How did that work out? But then beyond that, his goal is to basically say Joe Biden is tied to the rioters and the looters and Antifa, which is at face value, that is the single most absurd argument you could ever come up with about Joe Biden. Again, you are talking about the guy who wrote the damn crime bill. And now you're going to say he's not tough enough on crime? He's like pro-looter, pro-rioter? Oh, please. Oh, please. So, I'm going to tell everybody right now. In 2016, Trump ran against Hillary, and he kept hitting the same themes over and over. He kept hitting her on NAFTA and outsourcing jobs. He kept hitting her on corruption and the Clinton Foundation and all the pay-to-play stuff that's going on there. He kept hitting her on the Iraq War over and over and over and over. And he postured as being the anti-establishment outsider who's going to go in there and shake things up and overthrow the establishment and be the vessel for the people. This is what he did in 2016. That was his strategy in 2016. Now, in 2020, it's brag about the stock market, tie Biden to the far left, and lean into culture war stuff, which was the rest of his rally. So what's the culture war stuff? nonstop talking about the fake news media and how they're so mean to me and how the scandal when I walked down the ramp was so slippery. It was so slippery. It was ridiculous. I had leather shoes on and the fake news media came after me. You know, the statue stuff. He talks a lot about the statue stuff and oh my God, our history, our heritage, it's coming down. These crazy rioters and looters and far left and Antifa, they're coming for these statues. All of that stuff is not going to work. Why? Because the cultural war stuff is all background noise when we have a goddamn pandemic where over 120,000 Americans have died, where over 2 million Americans have COVID. That number is definitely going to keep rising. And you also have 20% real unemployment, which far eclipses the Great Recession, and we're in Great Depression territory, and we're only temporarily staving off another stock market implosion. So, when you have acute national crises all hitting at once, tumultuous uprisings, 20% real unemployment, a pandemic, nobody cares about the goddamn statues, bro. Now, yes, you do have people on the so-called far left and the far right who do care about that stuff a lot. And all they could do is be up their own asses talking about symbolism in the culture war all day long. That is not normal Americans. That is not regular folks. Most people have their kids and they want to pay the bills and they go to work and they come home and they see their family on the weekends. Like, most people are like that. You think those people have really, planted a flag and said, I have this position on the statues, good sir? Even people who have an opinion on that, that's not what they're thinking about when they lay their head down on their pillow at night. They're like, how the hell am I going to pay the bills? How can I make sure my family doesn't get COVID-19? What is going on in this country? Oh my God. This is what these people are thinking. How the hell am I going to pay my healthcare bills? We already had 28 million people that didn't have healthcare. Now we have another 20 plus million. This is insane. We didn't temporarily nationalize wages like Germany did. We got all these problems. We need a UBI desperately. People can't pay the mortgage. People can't pay the rent. And your ass is out there talking about statues and the culture war and how the fake news media is so mean to you. That is definitely going to ring hollow. Bro, nobody cares about your goddamn vanity. Nobody cares about your narcissism and the fact that you feel slighted. Yes, I'll admit that in 2016 and in times where the biggest issue is the establishment screwing everybody, people love a populist bomb thrower, and that's Trump's persona. He comes across as a populist bomb thrower. But as I've told you guys a million times, when we have acute national crises that are hitting us, like COVID-19, like 20% real unemployment, like tumultuous uprisings like the 1960s. When we have that stuff happening, people do not want a divisive figure, a populist bomb thrower. What they want is a steady hand of leadership that attempts to unite and rise above and let everybody know it's going to be okay, as opposed to this idiot fanning the flames of everything that's going on. This strategy will not work. And guess what? Biden doesn't have to do Dickie McGee's acts. He doesn't have to do Dickie McGee's acts because he's fighting the uphill battle now. He's way down in the polls. He's losing in every single swing state. He is. He's about 8 to 10 points down nationally. Against Hillary at this point, it was only 2 to 4 points down nationally. So it's on him. And here's the thing, guys. Let's say, forget his strategy this time around. Let's say he still ran an airtight strategy in 2020. Let's say Trump was out there doing everything he could exactly right. It would still be a struggle for him to get reelected, even if his strategy was perfect. Why? Because any human being, any politician, no matter how savvy they are, they're going to struggle to override the objective reality of 20% real unemployment and a pandemic. So think about it. Even if the strategy was good, he would have a hard time getting reelected. His strategy is trash. It's trash. So Biden is now a giant favorite. He's not the 2016 Trump. You know what happened, guys? He's been in that right-wing bubble for far too long. He's so deep in that right-wing bubble that remember he was tweeting about the One American News Network story of the 75-year-old protester who cops shoved and he was bleeding from his ear on the concrete pavement. That guy, turns out he was an Antifa agitator and he was working with the far left. Excuse you? So what? Even if that's true, which I doubt, the punishment for working with the far left is cops get to shove you and you bleed out from your ear and crack your skull? This is how deep he is in that right-wing bubble. He can't see straight. His instincts are trash now. Trump used to have decent political instincts. He understood, okay, the real issues matter. Well, what are the real issues? The Midwest, all their jobs were outsourced in this country. That's a huge problem. The real issues, the politicians are bought and owned. The real issues, stupid offensive wars like the Iraq War. That's a real issue. He understood that this is what you got to focus on. Now, like I said, talking about the NASDAQ and the stock market and your 401k when you're already skating on thin ice, trying to tie Biden, the most moderate of all moderate Democrats, to the far left. Meanwhile, he's basically a moderate Republican. And leaning into the culture war, which only... Listen, guys, I promise you, even if you're somebody who's super into the culture war, you got to try your best to take yourself outside of your own shoes and view the world through the eyes of a normie American. And in the eyes of a normie American, they care a hell of a lot more about their bills. They care a hell of a lot more about rent and mortgage payments and healthcare payments. They care a lot more about unemployment, losing their jobs, taking a pay cut. This is what they care about. And he's out there talking about the Confederate flag and statues. He's dating himself, you know? And the hardcore politicos, I think they're all dating themselves in thinking like the great statue debate really is the centerpiece of what's going on in the country. Nonsense. Doesn't matter how you posture on that, what your argument is. Largely, people are going to be like, whoop-de-doo, what about my bills? So he's in trouble. He's in serious trouble because I see not a hint of the proper strategy from him. Not a hint of the proper strategy from him. Whereas in 2016, I was sounding the alarm early on, going, this guy can beat Hillary Clinton because he showed in the primary good political instincts. And again, in the general, it was NAFTA. You outsource jobs, you outsource jobs. You're corrupt. The Iraq War, you supported it. It was terrible. It was wrong. I'm anti-establishment. That was the argument then. Incredibly poignant and potent and intelligent as a strategy. This time, he looks like a fool. All culture war and the fake news and my feelings and the stock market and Biden is with Antifa. He's a mess. At this point, Biden is a very big favorite. That could change. And as many people have pointed out, and I think it's true, a debate is likely to change that at least a little bit, because I do think Trump would be a lot better in a debate than Biden would. So that could change it. But as of right now, do not get it twisted. This is not 2016. Biden has at least doubled or maybe even tripled Hillary's national lead, and Biden is up in all the swing states. So to just dismiss all this and act like it's fake news and that Trump is not really down, oh, please. So we got to be as objective as possible and try to analyze why that is. I think what I'm saying has something to do with it here. Because he comes across as petty and narcissistic and self-obsessed and leaning into the culture war at a time when people want somebody to bring the country together and fix the big problems like unemployment, like healthcare, so on and so forth.